music, Nancy? All right, so a national agricultural insurance scheme has been on the lips of local farmers for a while. To policymakers, that idea is considered a high-risk investment, and somewhere in between is the issue of food security. What a lot of variables. So how do we move forward? We have invited Assistant Professor and Public Policy Analyst Kurt Brown and the Assistant General Manager of GK Insurance, Jordan Tate, to talk us through it. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here with us this morning.
Morning, Simpson, and morning, Delia.
Good morning to you, Jordan. Hi, Sir Kurt.
Good morning, Delia. Good morning, Simone. Good morning, Jamaica.
Morning. So, Mr. Brown, let me start with you. What is the hold up with trying to build some kind of policy framework around this? Why is it such a sketchy, scary notion that we can't seem to get our minds around when agriculture is such a crucial part of Jamaica's landscape and how people live and how we eat?
Well, all right. Let us put this into perspective. You're right when you said that Jamaica cannot do without its agricultural sector, because the agricultural sector in Jamaica contributes significantly to its own gross domestic product annually.
Right.
Another thing that we have to consider is this whole idea of food security, right? We are at a situation now where we have a high exchange rate, right? So it is not always feasible for us to be importing foodstuff locally. So we have to rely on our local farmers to supply us with as much food as possible, right? So that is why food security is very important to us as Jamaicans, right? Now, you said that this whole idea of having an agricultural insurance scheme seems somewhat scary. Yes, I will agree that, because providing agricultural insurance is a very costly venture, right? And I think that is one of the primary reasons why until this day we don't have a formal agricultural insurance scheme right here in Jamaica. But then again, as I said, we cannot do with our own agricultural sector. So we have to find creative and feasible means of ensuring that our farmers are encouraged to produce locally and supply us with the food that we need as much as possible.
Well, I know, Jordan, that your group CEO has touted a call about reducing the import bill by 50%, so we're less dependent on the imports, and especially during COVID when we saw what that did to our farmers. GK Insurance is responding, or were you responding before that? What did you see as feasible? What were you able to put in place given the high risk that Sir Kurt is talking about?
Simone, you're very correct. I mean, our group CEO has really challenged us to seek opportunities of how we can shore up the sector a lot more. I mean, as you know, that the food and farmers are very, very critical for Grace Kennedy's business. I mean, we're a large food company throughout the region, and as a result, I mean, it does only make sense for us to also then provide security from insurance solutions for those farmers. And so, over 8 years ago, we actually engaged some international partners to create a product that could fill this gap. Now, the reality of it is that crop insurance is not something that is globally easily accessible. And also when it is, it's very expensive. But what we've been able to do is to kind of meet within the middle, provide a coverage that helps to continue a person's livelihood after an extreme weather event, whether it is rain, wind, or even earthquake. And doing so in a very simple, transparent, and also fast cash way, so that once something happens, the farmer, the person who has had a loss, they can get money immediately so that they can get back their livelihood. They can start doing their business again so that they can continue to supply those who need to get the food, whether it's exporting, whether it's also for us locally to be able to have the food that we need.
Kurt, how would this work, this national insurance plan? Because we have farmers at different levels, we have cooperatives. There are so many different variables in terms of who is a farmer, and what they do? How would it work?
Well, what I have been proposing for the past few weeks is something that has been practiced in both developing and developed countries, a kind of insurance scheme called index-based or index-linked agricultural insurance, right? This kind of insurance is a new and innovative way as opposed to the traditional way of insurance. Because when it comes to the traditional way of insurance, claims are made and assessments have to be carried out, right, to honor those claims, and that can be a very costly venture. As it relates to index-based insurance, it is simply this. You have weather-related events that are associated with a particular index, and the index is a measurement of those weather-related events. Take, for example, rainfall. So if you have a period of time where there's rainfall in excess, let us say, above 20 or 30 millimeters, and this causes extreme widespread flooding, well, that 20 or say 30 millimeters of rainfall is what we'll call the threshold or the trigger. So once you have more than the 20 or 30 millimeters of rainfall that has occurred, then automatically that will trigger a payment, and this process does not involve any form of assessment. But if it's below the threshold, then of course you will have no payout being made to farmers, right? Any kind of insurance scheme that is used to protect our local farmers, of course, will have its pros and cons. But from my standpoint, I am recommending that the government consider the implementation of index-based insurance as a means of protecting our own local farmers. And based on my research until yesterday, I was aware now that the World Bank has partnered with one or more countries to offer index-based crop insurance for farmers. And remember, we don't really want to see our poverty rate increase in Jamaica. And the World Bank is one institution that has been helping countries since the Second World War to get out of poverty or to prevent poverty from occurring. So I think that maybe if our government approached the World Bank in a very serious way, the World Bank could consider having an index-based agricultural insurance scheme right here in Jamaica to protect our own local farmers.
Jordan, your thoughts on that?
I mean, Mr. Brown is spot on in terms of the index base, and that's something that we have designed at GK Insurance through international partners, including the World Bank, over the last 8 years. And this product we've seen actually has assisted many persons in disasters that happened in St. Lucia and even in Jamaica when we had rains a few years ago. Unfortunately, not many persons are on the plan today, and many persons could have benefited from it in the recent rains. But as Mr. Brown mentioned, I mean, engaging with the government is where we are now, and ultimately seeing how we can get this out to even more persons. We know that people don't get up every day thinking about what insurance plan to buy, but we know that when we have certain events, just like we had the rains recently, it now becomes a topical matter. And so again, we are reinforcing to all who are affected that, there is something out there. And again, we're working with the government now to help to kind of see how best we can get this out to a wider group of persons through the different, groups, whether it's the farming groups, the fisher folk, so that persons can really benefit from these insurance solutions that are available to them right now.
And when you say a lot of people aren't on the plan, is Delia mentioned people who are small farmers, larger farmers? Is it because they don't have the funds? Is it, what are some of the issues with regard to access?
So generally before, our distribution was mostly to the cooperatives or other institutions like that. Again, as Mr. Brown mentioned, selling this as a group solution is a lot more efficient. So right now we're transitioning to a phase where we're actually looking at larger groups and ultimately to sell the product or distribute the product through those means, and not just through maybe limited, channels such as the cooperatives, where not all or the farmers or customers like that who needs a product actually interact with.
Jordan, there's something that you do when you're doing insurance that has a lot to do with wind speeds. There's a technical equipment that you use to measure wind. Explain it to me.
So I mean, just as I mentioned, we want things that are very quick solution in terms of getting payments to our farmers.
Right.
And so the technology that is used right now is actually satellites that help to measure rainfall. And also, I mean, we know that the National Hurricane Center provides real-time wind speeds information, especially when there's a storm. So having partnered with these entities that have the ability to measure these things, we're able to really within hours determine what's the trigger level that has been reached for a certain event, and then it will trigger something in the bank account of our customers.
Wonderful.
In this time of climate change, this is a very important
It's
topic.
an important discussion that has to continue at all levels, getting the farmers to understand the need for it and how they can access it, and see we can get the government to partner.
Yes, I would like to point out again that the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, to which I'm employed, has conducted research on crop insurance in Jamaica, and the findings from that particular research inquiry has revealed to us that there are commercial crop farmers in Jamaica who support the idea of having a crop insurance scheme in Jamaica, right? But as I pointed out before, that I think that one of the reasons why we have not seen a formal agriculture insurance scheme in Jamaica is because of the costs that could be associated with having this venture. But we should bear in mind that where Jamaica is geographically located makes it vulnerable to a variety of natural hazards, right? We live in an earthquake zone, we live in a hurricane zone, right? And these events are what I would say that makes our farmers vulnerable.
And makes it even more important for us to be talking about this morning.
All right, gentlemen, we have to go. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Kurt Brown, Assistant Professor and Public Policy Analyst, and joining him, the Assistant General Manager of GK Insurance, Jordan Tate. Coming up next, the Jamaica Network of Seropositives celebrates World AIDS Day. We'll be right back.